Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to our program today, where we'll discuss Seek Small Victories with our speaker, Vaish, veteran Bhakti Yogi, author, and former monk. As you know, Vaish has been on a 6 week trip to India on a spiritual retreat, and I am very delighted, happy, and relieved that he's back. So thank you so much, Vaish. Welcome back to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Thank you so much, JM. I'm so happy to be here. Great to see you all. Wolf, Mukta, Pramila, Vanessa, Victor, Estover, Nichols here, Angie, Rajesh. Thank you very much for coming. Kelly's here. Am I getting an echo? No.
No, you're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, really happy to be back. And it was a nice trip and full absorption, which is time goes by fast. But when I come back here to this room, I've realized how much we've invested together, spending time here. And it's become a mainstay, really, for me. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Today, Success Sadhana goes on. Sadhana means something that is compelling as a practice because we have a clear goal that we're working towards. And my spiritual teacher once said that we get an anxiety mostly because we lack a clear goal. And once we have that in mind and we're able to find steps to achieve the goal, no matter what else is happening in our life, if we have that as our foundation, we know that we're taking steps in the right direction despite obstacles, then we'll feel satisfied. So we'll talk a little bit about an approach to that practice today and an encouraging paradigm, thinking about small victories. And we'll start off today with a meditation because it's a good way to get centered and to bring our attention inwardly, which oftentimes we get distracted by, not just distracted, but we're busy in our lives, so we have many things to think about, right? And it helps just to consolidate everything. In fact, I was talking to a monk when I was in India, and he's up into his 70s now. He's been practicing yoga for almost 55 years. And he was talking about his strategy in life now as being consolidation. So many new projects. He's done things all over the world and has worked on various classes that he's taught. And he was just mentioning consolidation, how he's bringing it all together now and looking at what's most important and making sure that he's fully absorbed in it. And we can do that every day because there are various objectives we may have. And besides our objectives, there may be other people's objectives that are imposed upon us as we get up in the morning. Someone might call us and say, hey, why don't you do this? Or have you finished that? So it's important to fortify oneself to make sure that we're able to fulfill our own agenda every day. That requires a little consolidation, putting together what's most important, looking at our lives and seeing what things are most important to me, which practices are most essential. So in the wisdom literatures, like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which advocate a universal kind of wisdom that addresses who we are beyond just the body and how to make spiritual advancement, which is really what these literatures consider the only real advancement. Other kinds of progress in life are only meant to support these, that is, support spiritual advancement. If we're if we don't have a place to live or we're not eating properly, it may be difficult to actually do our spiritual practices. And one of those essential practices is called swadhyaya, which is self-observation. And how often do I actually take a look inside and see, how am I doing? And who am I? Who is the conscious being inside that's making things happen? And where am I getting my resources from? That's another aspect of swadhyaya or self-examination, just seeing, where's everything coming from? Am I the source of everything? If I snap my fingers, does everything manifest automatically? Or is there a higher power that I'm in relationship with? This is actually the real theme of yoga. How am I related to a higher power? So let's try this process of meditation. This is one taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a primary practice of meditation called mantra meditation. And he talked in one of his teachings about the power of sound vibration. And in the verse that he wrote in Sanskrit, he said, Nam Nama Karhi Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis, that the Shaktis, or the powers of the spiritual world that come from our original conscious self, conscious source, I should say, they manifest in these mantras. And when we use them, then we're able to connect with that internal spiritual power. And this is one of the primary practices of bhakti yoga. So let's try by sitting up a little straighter than we were a couple seconds ago. And I'm going to put on a tempura. I'll switch over to sound for musicians, so we catch all the sounds here from the tempura. Let's see how it sounds in the key of C. If you can hear that sound and it sounds a little pleasing to you in any way, give me a thumbs up, because I can't see everybody. But okay. Hey, I'm getting a few thumbs up. Fantastic. Now, JM, if you would put up an image of the mantra Nitai Gauranga. We can use this rhythmic tempura and synchronize it with our breath. Today you don't have to close your eyes, you can look right at the screen. And the words Nitai Gauranga are spelled phonetically, but they're actually names of two avatars that bring spiritual enlightenment. And so by repeating the mantra Nitai Gauranga, we come directly in contact with this spiritual energy that they bring us. So I'm going to synchronize the mantra and my breath. I'm going to go slowly. We'll try this mantra 10 times together. If you wish, you can follow behind a muted mic in the key of C. Nitai Gauranga 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 And now just see if you notice that there's a resonance of this sound in your mind and heart. And any effects that it's had. And I'll lower the tempura. And we can come back into the Zoom room. See, we're all connected by sound vibration. Little images, we can see each other, but the sound vibration goes through. This is a principle passed down through the ancient Vedic literatures. Veda means knowledge, wisdom that relates to our ultimate purpose in life. So there's two aspects of this. It's called Shruti, which is hearing of sound vibration that gets passed down. It's like electricity. If it comes down through a channel, like a wire, the electricity has potency no matter how far away it is. So when we receive these mantras, they get passed down through a channel. And then when we take advantage of them, we feel the light, or we see the light, I should say. We feel the electricity that comes through them. So this is very practical. You can use your tongue and your ears, which are free gifts you get along with the human body generally. And it's a simple process. You don't need extra paraphernalia. You don't have to invest in any special equipment. You already have it already built in. So this Shruti, or hearing, is the way to enlightenment, according to the ancient Vedic literatures. It's mentioned that if you repeat the spiritual vibration, then you become unburdened by various impressions that cover our higher nature. This is called anavriti shabdat. Shabdat means by sound vibration. Anavriti, you become uncovered and you can see your real nature. We already have a nature. It's eternal. It always existed, but it gets obscured. Just the way when there's a sunny day, but our vision of the sun gets obscured by clouds. If you rise above the clouds, you'll see, it's always a sunny day above the clouds. So the clouds can be the various mundane vibrations that enter into our consciousness and cover our real nature, which is always bright. So I do have a few slides today, but before I do, I need a little human interaction. Is that unreasonable to ask for a little human interaction? So, it's a medium. We're connected to each other. But it'd be nice if anybody has any comments at all, like about the meditation or about anything I've said so far, just anything you want to express at this point, either verbally or in the chat box. I'd count that as human interaction. I'm a little starved. I've been sitting in an ashram for 6 weeks. Not that I
Hare
didn't
Krishna
have
Prabhu.
human interaction. Who is that?
Yeah, hi. This is Gokul Prabhu.
Hey, go cool. Please go ahead. Great to hear your voice.
Yeah, glad to see you back from your India trip. Hope
Thank
everything
you.
went well.
That's very meaningful to me.
I was just wondering the meaning of this mantra.
Nitai actually means it's a term that is related to eternality. You know, some that the material world's always changing. It's called bhava. Bhava means everything's transforming right before our eyes. Whatever we try to keep sifts through our fingers. But there is an eternal nature which is conscious, it's beyond matter, and it's full of bliss, actually. It's where bliss comes from. And this is Nitai. And Gauranga refers to the avatar who came to teach. Avatar literally means one who descends from a higher stratum to a lower one in order to give knowledge and wisdom so that we can improve ourselves. So the Vedic writings talk about this golden avatar. You've heard me talk about the golden monk. I just use that terminology. So that's Gauranga, actually, who teaches this simple process of self-realization for the present age, which is mostly about mantra meditation. But there are many different aspects also. So Gauranga, the avatar, is full of he's golden and has this beautiful compassion. So when we say the names of Nitai, who's another avatar, they're twin avatars who come together, Nitai and Gauranga, then it opens us up to this knowledge and bliss and compassion. Did that help, Gokul?
Yeah, thank you. And I felt this sense of peace when I was meditating. That was my experience. Yeah,
Did you like the tempura added in?
yeah, definitely. I think it brings in some focus.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
for anybody listening who also felt similarly that the tempura helped in regulating your breath and doing the mantra, you can go onto YouTube and just put in Tanpura, that's Tanpura, and whatever key you feel comfortable with, they have every key. So I use C because I found the middle C is a tone that everyone can sing to in a group. Generally, C is pretty neutral, but you can pick any one you want, and if you dial it in there and then use it during your mantra meditation, you can do just as we've done there, and it really helps carry you along in your mantras. Rajesh.
Hey, thank you very much. I think today's topic, I really like it because in the whole tech world right now, as the way the market is and the way the situation is, we are overwhelmed by the anxiety, the stress, and what's going to happen. So I really like that once we have our goal and we need to take baby steps, because if this meeting wasn't happening today, I might be looking at what Elon Musk is going to do next, because it's kind of a crazy that the way the situation is in the outside. But I think thank you for reminding us that we need to have a disciplined practice. And if you don't have this 1 hour, it's a constant reminder we need to have every day. Otherwise, we could waste the whole life actually living in anxiety, fear, or taking care about something which is not so important. So I'm really grateful for your sparing time us to enlighten with your wisdom. So thank you.
I'm grateful for you always being here. Thank you. And I recognize also that the world's a very turbulent place these days. I'll say more about that as we go into the slides. And I do hope that this brings a modicum of peace of mind as we go through. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Mukta.
Yeah, namaste, Guruji. I have one question. I'm kind of a little feeling silly as well, but let me ask it, since it reminded me from what you said. Like recently, I read this: I do nothing and nothing left undone. Right. And and I was also like last few weeks, I was going through the Gita, and there as well, they mention that we think we are the doers, but we are not. So I am very eager to hear your viewpoint.
That's such an important question. There are statements in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the other wisdom literatures, which remind us that we're not the ultimate doer. We're not the only doer. Nonetheless, we do have agency. So we do desire, we have desire, and we can also decide where to place our attention. That's a choice that we make. We have free will. So it's not that we're helpless. We actually are architects of our own future. Nonetheless, there are other factors. We're not independent in carrying out our desires. An example sometimes given is a little child who sees his father lifting weights, and then he goes in to pick up a big heavy weight, which is way beyond his capability. And then the father's standing behind him. And then as the child puts his little hands on the bar, the father grabs the bar also and then actually lifts it. And the child's thinking, oh, I'm lifting it. But the intention is there, but there are other forces that are assisting us and that we cannot do without. We're not independent in fulfilling our desires. And it's not that just whatever we think of, we necessarily manifest. There's also this concept of karma, of what we deserve also, because it's also the way we've interacted with the world that gives us the results that come to us. So it's we are agents, to answer simply. However, we're not fully independent. We depend on higher power in order to carry out our desires. This is all according to Bhagavad Gita and the ancient teachings. What an important question. Thank you very much. Also, Carrie wrote in. Thank you, Carrie. I missed you too. Rebecca, and it's so good to see you. Thank you, you too. Thank you. And Jay Kali, thank you for dedication, intellectual and spiritual evolution. Well, I'm hoping for that, and thank you for saying so. Okay, JM, we'll take more thoughts and questions in a moment. I feel a little filled up now. I've had some human interaction. So let's go to the slides. I felt especially empowered by Rajesh, who said he wants to go to this place where we get beyond the anxiety of the world. And guess what, Mukta? This is our first slide. Humans are self-determining. Animals, they have activity, personality. They're a little more constricted. They have a particular nature it's hard to break out of. As you can tell, one of my favorite examples is beavers, because I went and saw a bunch of them in Utah. And then after that, somebody sent me a YouTube video with somebody who was keeping a beaver as a pet. And the beaver was just trying to build dams inside the house by taking the furniture apart. And if you sit him down and talk to him and say, why don't you be a little more constructive here? That he's more constricted, the beaver. Human beings, according to the ancient wisdom literatures, are self-determining to the degree that we are able to overcome various obstacles. And that's what the success sadhana is about. We're able to be more and more self-determining. So this is important to remember that we do have agency. We can make a difference in our own lives. Okay, let's try the next one. So we have the power to improve. Yeah, that's an important part of agency. And there is a sense of improvement. There are better and worse conditions in this world. That's one of the topics of Bhagavad Gita. It's not that everything's the same. There are lower modalities in this world that constrict us more. And there are higher modalities that we can cultivate. That's the same way that you cultivate a garden, that bring us to a higher level of consciousness. And we can also transcend the various qualities of the material world altogether and enter into the spiritual qualities of which we're a part. Because we're different from matter. Matter is lower energy. We as conscious beings are higher energy. So it's nice to know we have the power to improve, right? Let's see, I'm just moving to see if there's any thumbs up. Feel free, keep your finger on that reactions trigger. It really enlivens me when I get a thumbs up. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Gokul. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Mayank. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. Victory. An act of defeating an enemy or opponent in a battle, game, or other competition. So, the title of today's presentation is Seek Small Victories. The small victories add up as we go through life. So, the act of defeating an enemy. What's our enemy, our opponent? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that our own minds can become our worst enemy. Can also become a friend, but it depends on how we cultivate our mind. Again, a garden. You can let it go. You go to seed, becomes a tangle of weeds, or you can cultivate something like a mango tree or some bok choy. It depends on what you plant and how you take care of it that it comes out. There's another power in the universe that I've mentioned before. I took this concept from an author named Pressfield, who wrote a book called The War of Art. Not the art of war, but the war of art. He's a writer, and he talks about how whenever we take up a worthy cause, we try to develop ourselves, there's this resistance that's in the universe. He spells it with a capital R and says that there's a way in which we always have to encounter this resistance. And therefore we have to fortify ourselves for victory when we're confronted by the resistance that holds us back. Has anybody ever felt a sense of resistance? For instance, when you had a project you had to work on, maybe writing, or maybe exercising, or maybe eating better, or improving yourself in any way, and you decided you're going to do it? And have you ever felt any resistance? Nurali said, yes, resistance is there. Thank you for acknowledging. I saw your text, Mukta, and I'm going to come back to that. SN said yes. JM has a smile and he said yes. I mean, a thumbs up I'm taking as a yes. Yes, every day when I go to work. LOL, Rebecca. Kelly, daily, all the time. Yes, so there's this resistance. So this is where we're seeking our victory over this power that seems to be all-pervading and that confronts us, comes up in our own minds. We have a sense of we can feel oppressed by our own minds and by our circumstances. How do I move forward? So that's the topic today, amidst so much resistance. It may look like the world's turning in such a way that it's also against me as well. As Rajesh mentioned earlier, that circumstances in the workplace or geopolitical events, they may also seem like delimiting elements in my life. Okay, let's see another slide. Hopefully these will be encouraging. A way to develop ourselves to overcome resistance and have progress in our life. So some of the enemies of progress: I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. I can't improve. And this idea that I can't improve can be depressing, as I feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, and I can't improve. But the ancient wisdom literatures say, cheer up, little soul, you can improve. In fact, you're already something that's so amazing that if you just deal with it from the right position, and that is spiritually, you can't solve a problem on the material level, because there's always some combination and permutation of problems that's going to come up that emanate from the solutions we come up with on a material level. I don't know if that made sense. I'll just say that there are no material solutions, because categorically the material world is problematic, categorically. So there's another category of practice, which is spiritual practice. And according to the wisdom literatures, when we apply ourselves on that level, we can definitely victory over the mind, over the senses, over the different obstacles in the world. And this is emphatically stated. It's not that it's only works for some people. It works for everybody, because we're all in the same category. We're all conscious beings. So we have to apply ourselves consciously to a spiritual practice. It's really necessary to have progress in life. Okay. I think I hammered that pretty heavily. So look for small victories. Why do I say small victories? Because small victories add up to big victories. And I love this quote: start with what's necessary. Because a stubborn mind stuck in the mud, well, where do I start? You do what you have to do right now. And then look to see what's possible. What can I do? What little thing? Start with what you can do right now. That's okay. And then you find yourself, after applying this principle, doing the impossible. In fact, I have a friend who's a very popular speaker, and he's written books and a great singer. And he often says that the main recreation in his life is trying to make the impossible possible. That's what gives him joy in his life. And if we approach things like that, and we apply the principle of success sadhana, which means take what's available now. What can I work on right now, that small thing that helps me to get a victory? And then keep applying that principle on the smallest level, overcoming, and I'll go into this in a second, what I mean by that, the various ways that we can find spiritual victories in our lives, moral victories, spiritual victories that give us a foundation upon which we can be steady, even amidst the resistance. We don't get pushed around, and also in the face of urges that pull us off track and so forth.
I have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Jam, please.
Vesam asks, is procrastination a form of resistance?
Mm-hmm. It's one of the biggest ones, but you can also use it in your favor too. You just have to know what to procrastinate on. I call it tender, loving neglect. So, for instance, let's just say you're being careful with your diet, and then there's an urge that comes, and I don't know if anybody likes, ice cream or brownies or whatever. It's not on your diet, and then the urge comes, and then it's like, what do? Tender, loving neglect. Procrastinate. You know how to do that, right? Just put it off. Don't say never, but just say not right now. I'll do it later. This is what we do when we avoid things that are good for us. So do it instead for things that are bad for you. And this, I think they should teach at in universities. We should have a department called applied procrastination. Yeah, use procrastination. It's human nature, but use it for the right things. And then it's properly applied. But in general, just general procrastination is a form of resistance for sure. It's like, I'll do it later. Doesn't it feel so good, Wisam, when you're able to overcome procrastination? When you look it right in the face and you say, no, I'm going to do the thing I said I was going to do. Whenever I'm on track like that, I just feel so powerful. What do you think, Wisam? Because you brought it up. I think you're talking, but you're still on mute.
Yeah, too many things I have to press to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Yeah, I always thought that procrastination is an enemy. I did not discriminate between doing procrastination all over the place. But having to be selectively procrastinating things, I think is a new skill that I need to learn. Now, sorry, I went back to your question. What was your question? Sorry.
I was just wondering what your experience was with procrastination. I had said, doesn't it feel great when you're able to overcome it and do the right thing?
Yeah, so that's true. Except that I have not done that well.
Well, small victories is the theme here today. Look for small victories. And, even the tiniest little victory over procrastination can give us a sense of spiritual self-esteem that, yeah, actually, I know I can do it. It's so worth it to be courageous and look procrastination in the face and say, yes, but I'm going to get a small victory out of this, even though procrastination is standing over me with a big club and I'm afraid of it. It's such a big monster. Let me extract a small victory out of this. And when we do, we get so much strength that big monster starts to shrink. And
Actually,
so, yeah, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, in that aspect, I had the other question is that, is procrastination a habit or is it a skill? In a way, I mean, since we're going to be selectively procrastinating things, because I myself am a last minute person, last minute man. So I procrastinate things to the last minute, then I start doing things. And just like I work under pressure, I like working under pressure. So I don't know if it's a skill or it's a habit.
Well, it depends the way I'm presenting it, how you use it. Somebody look up the word. Let's just look at it really carefully. If you put it up there on the screen from the etymological dictionary, it really means to put something off. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily have to put things off to feel the pressure. You just kind of adjust the time frame a little bit. Generally, when we have more time to invest in something, in a project, for instance, if we're able to do it systematically over time to learn something, we get more out of it. Procrastinate, to put off till another day, defer to a future time. It comes from procrastinare, to put off till tomorrow, from French. Okay. Depends if it's robbing you of your values in life and oppressing you, then it's a bad habit. If you're able to use it constructively to put off things that aren't good for you, then it's something that's helpful. Utility is a principle in anything. A knife can be used for cutting up vegetables to feed a family, or it can be used, to harm somebody. So everything in this world is neither good or bad. It's how it's used, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wisam, for bringing that up. JM, any other points you want to augment?
Yeah, there are a few more which are coming on the chat. Sundar says, I like this prayer. Please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Such a powerful prayer. And it relates to the circle of influence and the circle of concern that Stephen Covey put forward. It's an easy graph to look at because the circle of concern is huge. whereas a circle of influence is tiny. And if we're able to stay within that circle of influence, what can I actually do about this rather than wringing my hands or mentally chasing it and worrying about it? Worry is like looking at a ceiling fan. It just keeps going around and around, and it's not that productive. But if I'm able to apply myself where I am right now, then I start to feel relief from that. Nice. Anything else, JM?
Yeah, we have Mayank saying this reminds of what you had shared earlier. Sense gratification delayed is sense gratification denied.
That's right. Yeah, that's in the realm of in the legal system. Says justice delayed is justice denied. And there's also a principle in accounting. It's called the law of diminishing intent. So that has to do with the collection department, especially when you're collecting in a company from people who owe you something. The longer you wait, the less likely you are. It goes down on the graph, the less likely you are to collect it, because over time, intention is withered and people forget, oh, why am I paying anyway? So yeah, if you starve an urge and just put it off and you wait, and then it weakens over time. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board here. A few more principles that could be practical about seeking small victories. So again, start with what is necessary. Start with what you can do right now. Going back to the last slide, I'm just reiterating. Soon you'll find yourself doing the impossible, doing the extraordinary. It works so well. It's part of the nature of the world. Compounded interest. Everything starts with a small investment, and then it grows from there. So don't be afraid for the small things. Okay, next. Attitude is everything. So here's some winning attitudes. All I can do is all I can do, but all I can do is enough. It was a title of a book years ago. And I love the mantra because oftentimes we get waylaid by thinking I can't do enough, but all you can do is all you can do, right? And all you can do is enough. That's all you can do right now, but you're so powerful as a conscious being that your intention that gets enacted in your activity, even if it's the smallest little step forward. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Neha bikramanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpamap yasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. He's saying that even if you take the smallest step forward intentionally in your practice, he said it's huge, actually, even though it looks small to you. It'll never be lost. That progress will never be lost. That victory is indelible. And so it's so important to remember that all you can do is all you can do, but all you can do is enough. And also the question is, how do I make progress? Start from where you are right now. You can't start from where someone else is because you're not someone else. And it doesn't matter how far along you are, because birds fly in the sky as high as they're able. The sky's unlimited. So you have to start from where you are now and be a little comfortable with, okay, here's where I am now. I'm going to move forward from this position. And then another one of my favorites, which is the third one, inch by inch, it's a cinch. So just take the little inch, because, okay, when I was in India just now, I met with a group that wanted to hear from some of the wisdom literatures. So we had sessions every day in a room, and I was reading out loud from a book, and it's quite a thick book, actually. And if you look at it, actually, we had 1,600 pages to cover. And so if you look at a thick book, then you think, how's it possible to read this book? I don't have time to read a big book like this. And besides, like, how would I ever get from the beginning to the end? Well, I'm going to demonstrate. Hold on. Don't go anywhere now. I'm going to try to pull out a thick book here, which I'm doing right now. This book's pretty thick, right? But let me point out that a thick book is made up of individual pages. How thin is that, would you say? Do you have a little instrument you can measure it with, how thin this page is? But it's amazing when you read a book and you just stick to one page at a time and you keep turning them. After a while, you look and you say, wow, I'm halfway through. How did I do that? Contrary to Zeno, the Greek philosopher, who said you can't get anywhere because there's an infinite number of halfway points between where you are now and where you're trying to get. It was disproved through calculus. But it's amazing that if you go one page at a time, page by page. In fact, I created an app called Page by Page, Be a Sage. Because if you just take one page at a time and you read it, and you just keep doing that, you'll improve your life. You'll become a sage. You'll have wisdom. So that approach to any project is really helpful. I know you've heard it before, but I'm reiterating it because it is the way to get out of anxiety and move forward towards a worthy goal. Oh, Nurali actually knows how thin a page is. That's pretty good. I never knew that. What is a UM anyway?
Micron. It's
It's
the
a
same thing.
micron, huh?
It's the same thing as 0.1 millimeter.
Wow. So 100 micron, as thin as a hair. Yep. That's really helpful. Oh, I see. And it's 0.1 millimeter. Okay. So that's how small your victory can be, is one page at a time. If you have a victory that you could measure and was only 100 microns in size or 0.1 micron in size, you're moving in the right direction. That's what's called su alpam. Alpam means small, and su is an intensifier in Sanskrit. Su alpam means the smallest thing you can think of. If you do that and you do it, go in the right direction, that's your small victory. That counts. Okay, Jam, let's get to the last slides because I have some things practical. Here's a mantra that guides my life. I'm pretty sure I coined this phrase, but you never know. Maybe I took it in subconsciously from somebody else. Wherever I got it, I love it. Be methodical, but dispassionate. It's sort of the mode of troubleshooting. When you troubleshoot, you just go through. I've watched people deal with problems before. I've been fortunate to have connected with people who are really good problem solvers. And I've worked on committees where people, like for instance, a big legal problem, and I thought, this is a mess. It'll never be sorted out. And I don't see how there's any daylight here. But I watched the experts, and they just showed up every day with their lunch boxes and, kept working on the problem until they found a little 0.1 millimeter, 100 micron size opening. And then they dealt with it. And lo and behold, that let in the light. And so they were dispassionate, I noticed. They just dealt with it methodically, but they didn't get all excited about how far down they were or even how far they were moving forward. They just took each step at a time. So be methodical, but dispassionate. Okay. Consistency. Consistency is king. It's more important than quantity. If you're consistent in anything, for instance, investing, you don't have to have a huge income to become wealthy. If you're consistent in taking, for instance, 10% of your income and putting away into a fairly good investment implement over time, because of compounded interest, you'll have a modicum of wealth. And same thing with exercise. If you're consistent in walking every day or doing some kind of exercise every day, consistent, then your body's going to respond. If you're consistent in eating a good diet, same thing. And if you're consistent in spiritual practice every day, you're going to rise above the lower modalities, guaranteed. So This is our friend, consistency. Even if it's small, a tiny little victory, be consistent. Just do it every day and trust in the power of consistency, of compounded interest. It's one of the wonders of the world. Count your victories. You can make a little tally, keep a, like I have a calendar I carry around with me. And on the calendar, I mark down my victories. And then I can go back and look and say, oh, yeah, okay, we're moving. Everything's good. Keep making that, checking off the box. Have a place where you can count that you were victorious in a particular way in your life in that day. Doesn't matter how small the victory is, but if you count it and you look back, you'll see, yes, I'm making progress. That's important. Here's some of the best wins you can get. And these were off the top of my head, but they're consistent in my life, places where I find, and also in the wisdom literatures. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about speech. This is a place where you can find victories. How? Okay. Yoga of the tongue. Your tongue is like a rudder, and it determines the direction you're going to go in your life. Speech is really important. What you say to yourself and others is creating a particular environment. It's developing your consciousness in a particular way. So a couple tips about speech. Be careful what you say to people. For instance, I've found you can try this practice for a week or 2 weeks or a month if you like, and tell me what you think, but don't make ultimatums. There's an urge that comes up, like when you're negotiating with somebody, even a spouse or a friend or somebody, another entity of any kind, and you want to get what you want, and then you're not getting it. It's possible for this kind of urge coming up in one's chest, thinking, I'm going to make an ultimatum. Unless I get it my way, then forget the whole thing. That's an ultimatum. So you just took yourself out of the process because you said it has to be my way. But I've found that if you don't let your tongue utter that, and instead you look for a workaround, then this is another phrase that I came up with during the pandemic when we were working with a lot of different multinational participants, and when there was a lot of different kinds of resistance, and that is that workarounds lead to turnarounds. You can turn around your life, you can turn around a project if you look for workarounds. Don't go for the ultimatum. And one of the first places it comes out is on your tongue. Say, it has to be this way, has to be my way. Okay, you just canceled your progress. Look for the workaround. Try that in your speech. And if you feel the urge to make an ultimatum, try not doing it. That's a little victory. And you'll just notice that you go on a different track. If you're looking to criticize somebody, think a few times before you say it. Before you pass on a rumor, I heard a quote the other day that said, rumors die when they come into the mind of a wise person. That's where they die, the rumors. So don't use trivial speech, things that are unverified, and just passing on things that are pernicious, that actually affect other people's lives, or critical of them, unless you vet it first and see, is it really necessary for me to say this? So here's another rule of thumb. Say 20% less every day. There are many things that come into your mind, okay? Take that whole pie and say, today I take out 20% and I'm going to winnow out the things I don't need to say. That's a victory. That's a small victory that actually leads you to higher consciousness. Be careful of your speech. Just try it. You'll see. The next is diet. Everything adds up. It's a science. Whatever you eat, whatever you put in your mouth, that's going to affect your every part of your body. Every cell in your body gets affected. So try for little victories. Instead of eating, a Hershey's bar, try blueberries instead. You say, well, blueberries aren't sweet enough. Well, that's because you're so used to eating sugar, perhaps. If you reduce your intake of this really high octane stuff that that burns off in 5 seconds called sugar, and you try natural things like eat an apple. It tastes very sweet if you're not ingesting sugar. I'm just giving little examples, but diet is something that adds up, and you get a win when you control your tongue and you're careful about what you eat instead of just eating any old thing. You feel better about yourself. Tolerance in all its ways. Just when little inconveniences come up, usually from other people, be tolerant and see what happens. It's a different path. It leads you in a higher level of consciousness when you learn to tolerate the little inconveniences or trespasses of other people. And finally, I mean, the list could go on and on, but this is the list for today for best wins. Reading something important, listening to something that's nourishing. Instead of scrolling mindlessly, look, especially on a paper page. It's much less distracting than going on a device that's glowing in your face with blue light. Look at something that's important and read it. Nourish your mind, even if it's one line. And if you do that, you're going to have victory. So these are some examples of victories. You can write down some yourself and then try to adhere to them and see how you feel. JM, let's see if there's any last comments.
Nirali said, my kid would be happy with no ultimatums. Good practice for me as started.
How would your kid be happy with no ultimatums, Nirali?
Oh man, it's an everyday struggle. No games, video games playing, and I'm like, this is last time, and I'm taking your computer away.
The other thing I've noticed, Nirali, about ultimatums is unless I'm actually ready to do the thing I say.
Yeah.
If I make
I did it.
Oh, you did it. Okay. Well, I'm not saying that's bad either, because that, could be a certain circumstance in which, that needs to be done. Well, did it work?
A little bit, yes, actually it worked, but I think I say some empty ones a lot of times too. Like, I think it's constant going on, but one of those thing I had to take action. But yeah, I think I have some empty ones. So you're right. Like, not every sentence would be ultimatum.
Yeah, and the work when you're working with kids as a parent, you daily see that, these applications, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
JM, anything else?
If you would like, you can unmute yourself. There are a few things which came about previously. Rebecca,
I have
Sundar.
Sundar, yes, please.
I just wanted to share a reflection. Thank you for mentioning those best wins. Even if it's a small victory, I think it's important. Many times, I think personally, I also do this as we don't pat ourselves or acknowledge that we have had these small victories, and many times we just looking at the next steps. Okay, what is the next big goal? Or and then when we don't see a big victory, then we feel discouraged, and then we go back to our old patterns or habits. But acknowledging these small victories is important, and something that can really encourage us. So thank you for bringing these points.
When I was going through the airport in Bangkok, Thailand, a few years ago, there was a sporting goods store inside the airport, and there was a big poster outside. And there was a picture of a famous footballer. I can't remember his name right now because I'm not
Messi.
that. Macy, was that his name? Because I wrote something about it, remember. So is Macy, is that his name?
Messi.
Okay. Whoever he is, for my respects. And the poster, it was a quote from him. It said, "I was an overnight success after 16 years. That reminded me, I wrote that one down and wrote a little article about it, because oftentimes that's the case with these small victories. Then someone says, oh, wow, you're just an overnight success. And you say, yeah, overnight success after 16 years or after 50 years, some people have. So, the little victories are important to celebrate. There is, they do add up, just like reading one page at a time adds up to reading a whole book, and reading a whole book actually changes your life. Wow, thanks a lot, Sundar. That was an important point. Hey, there's the quote. It took me 17 years and 114 days to become an overnight success. And there was a last point there about children, something I saw there at the bottom.
Yeah. Marias said, children act like they don't want structure, but structure is actually desired by children. The outcome of what we follow through on now shows in our children as teen adults. Stay strong, the seeds you plant now, you'll harvest later.
Marilia, thank you very much. That was such an important and subtle quote you gave there. Really important. I think it applies across the board, actually. Well, everybody, we did our best. We churned, right? And something came out. That's what we can do as human beings. We can come together at a kind of think tank like this. And if we can take away one idea, one inspiration, and actually apply it in our lives, we can have that small victory. And if we put together victories one after another, we'll develop this spiritual self-esteem, and we can rise above the lower modalities of this world. This is one of the themes of Bhagavad Gita. We really can. So I'm hoping and praying we all got something from this, and I'm deeply grateful that you all joined in today, because your time is so important, and you have so many things going on and so many other choices. JM, on my way home, I met a monk who had just been in the Himalayas, and he showed me some pictures, actually. I'm still waiting for him to send them so I can show them to you, of yogis who live in the Himalayas in caves. And I said, now let me just ask you, is it true that they have this saying, when they see one another on the high peaks of the Himalaya, then they want to encourage one another, that keep the vibration going, and they say it in Sanskrit? And he said, it's absolutely true. So I thought I'd be the first one to break this good news to you. And since we're in a little cave-like situation here, and we want to encourage one another, we can try this phrase. It goes, Hari Bol. Hari means one who takes away all your obstacles, and Bol means to say. So let's try it. What do you think?
Yes.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Haribol. Haribol.
Thanks, everybody.
Haribol.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Get some small victories, and we'll talk about it next week. Hari Bol.
Thanks.
Haribol.